Following on from last week's reveal of the new Imperial Knight Defender, the Chaos Knights are also getting a brand new toy to play with in their upcoming codex. Once again, this isn't a wholly brand new kit or design, this is instead just an upgrade sprue, but for the forces of Chaos, the Knight Ruinator is stomping onto the battlefield with some very unique and potentially some very cool weaponry. The Ruinator is the same classic Chaos Knight chassis with the awesome jointed leg design, which I actually have to say I really like. I think it's better than the Imperial variant. But what it does is it brings along a new flamer style weapon called the Dark Flame Lance and a terrifying new melee weapon which is called the Fellbore. And the Fellbore especially I really like because it is this absolutely fantastic looking like siege drill, which you just know is going to be absolutely fantastic at mulching through vehicles and monsters, and I do genuinely think it's probably going to be one of the best weapons in the entire game at the moment for going into those tougher, more heavily armored targets. It's also in quite a unique twist compared to some other knights, got two shoulder mounted weapons, so it's got one on each side as you can see in the image there, unlike the standard stubber or melter that most knights have on one side on that shoulder part. The Ruinator instead has got two Terrapulse missile launchers. Now we don't know exactly what they do, but it says it is sort of this anti-marine style firepower and it's really good at just wiping out marines, so I wouldn't be surprised if it is, at the very least 2 damage, so potentially some more anti-infantry firepower that this thing can throw down range. The main weapons, of course, though, are the Flamer and the Fellbore, and I have to say, I think this is definitely more of a melee knight than anything. This is a knight that really does want to get up the board, get up towards the enemy, and then just wipe them out, either at very short range or in combat. And it's apparently got a rule that will sort of help you do that. It has an ability where you can pick an enemy unit as the target at the start of the battle, and then it becomes your target essentially, and you get some bonuses or some buffs to help you take it out. And then once you've killed that target, you can pick another one and then go after a different quarry as the game goes on. So yeah, it really does seem like this thing just wants to get up the board quickly, pick out key enemy targets and just wipe them out, and then just pick another one and move on to it, and just go through the enemy battle line from unit to unit to unit, just destroying them all, either with its flamer or with that awesome siege drill. Now, like the Defender, we don't actually get told the weapon stats themselves, but we can have a quick think about what they might be. We are told that the flamer weapon, the Dark Flame Lance, is a match for the Knight Tyrant Dark Flame Cannon, and the Dark Flame Cannon from your big Knight Tyrant is 3d6 shots at strength 8, -1 AP and 2 damage, with Ignores Cover and Torrent. So it's essentially just a really big anti-infantry flamer. So I think the Dark Flame Lance is going to match that in some ways. The big thing for me about this is that it is only 1 barrel rather than 3, and the Dark Flame Cannon, 3 barrels, 3d6 shots. That makes sense. So with only 1 barrel, is this thing only going to be d6 shots? Because if that is the case, for a knight, that really does feel quite underwhelming. So I'm kind of torn about whether they are going to change the profiles around quite significantly and just give both the Knight Tyrant more shots and give this thing more shots as a consequence of that. Or maybe they will stick with 3d6 shots on the Dark Flame Cannon and the Dark Flame Lance will be stuck with only d6 shots, but maybe they will be slightly stronger in comparison. And I think the fact that this thing has got Lance in the name, it is a Dark Flame Lance, does make me think that, because anything with Lance in the name, in my mind, is a bit more sort of like punchy and just stronger. So I don't know, maybe this will still be d6 torrent shots, but be a higher strength 10, or be -2 or -3 AP, or maybe even just have some better damage to represent that Lance part of the name. And I mean, yes, even if it is much stronger, being only d6 shots would be really swingy and quite annoying, but it would definitely feel a lot better if it would actually do more when it did hit the enemy compared to the strength 8 -1 AP 2 damage of the Dark Flame Cannon. I could even see them doing something really unique and different and give it maybe devastating wounds, and I think if this thing had something like d6 shots at strength 10, -2 AP, 3 damage with dev wounds, it would actually be a really great profile for going into things like light vehicles and elites like Terminators and Custodies. So I think that could actually be a really fun, unique profile for it, and one that would also allow you to have another flamer weapon that didn't quite step on the toes of things like the Tyrant or the Knight Acheron. In terms of the shoulder weapons, the Terra Pulse missile launchers, these to me, just based on their look like they're going to be more in line with things like the Iron Storm missile pod rather than the Storm Spear rocket pod of the main Knight, which is on their carapace. So I'm thinking in terms of rules, it's probably going to be more similar to the Iron Storm. So I think this might be D6 shots each at strength 5, -1 AP, 2 damage. So with the two of them, 2d6 shots, strength 5, -1 AP, 2 damage. It's fairly standard, fairly sort of par for the course for that kind of weaponry, and it would be this nice mixture, this nice in-between of the Iron Storm and the Storm Spear. It would have some better AP and damage than the Iron Storm, but less shots and maybe be shorter range, but it would still fit the idea of it being this sort of anti-marine style shoulder weapon. And then the main melee weapon, the Fellbore, as I said, I think this is going to be something utterly brutal into monsters and vehicles. The closest thing we have to something like it at the moment is the Leviathan Siege Drill, and I know the Leviathan is Legends now, so you may not want to look at it as an idea, but I do still think it's a good place to get some idea of what it might be like. The Leviathan Siege Drill is 4 attacks at strength 12, -2 AP, 3 damage, and it has anti-vehicle 3+. So I think the Fellbore will follow that profile, just be very beefed up. So it could maybe be something like strength 14 or strength 16, -4 or maybe even -5 AP to show it really being able to go to town even on things like Land Raiders, and then a flat 6, maybe even 8 damage. I also fully expect this weapon to have anti-vehicle, whether that's anti-vehicle 2+ or 3+, I don't know, but I think it's going to be just utterly brutal into those vehicles, and probably anti-monster as well as anti-vehicle, so just brutal into monsters and vehicles. If I could have it my way, I would have this thing be maybe not a huge amount of attacks, but just really powerful ones. I'd love to see this weapon be 4 attacks that hit on 3s at strength 16, -4 AP, 6 damage, but then with anti-vehicle 3+ and devastating wounds. I think that would be really thematic and fluffy. Yes, it would be ridiculously strong with those dev wounds going through on a 3+, but it would just make it so laser focused into that anti-vehicle, anti-monster role. And with that kind of profile, it would do about 14 damage into an enemy vehicle or monster if it had both those keywords, which I think is maybe not super balanced. I don't know. Like, as I said, I'm not a really super competitive player, but I certainly think that would be a good place to start in terms of having this very focused anti-vehicle, anti-monster knight to throw into your opponent's lines. Now, of course, this is all speculation. It may not have dev wounds on any of its guns. It may not be anti-vehicle, although I would be surprised if it wasn't. It might not even have anything in terms of a similar profile flamer-wise to things like the Dark Flame Cannon, but I really think this knight is going to have quite a specific focus on what each weapon does. I think the Dark Flame Lance is going to be a fairly solid, relatively low shot, but quite good anti-elite gun, whilst the Fellbore, as I've said, is just going to be able to rip through monsters and vehicles super effectively. I'm also quite intrigued to find out what its special rule does, being able to choose that target unit at the start of the battle and then getting some bonus against them, maybe allowing you to reroll wound rolls or getting some reroll charges as you go into it or something like that, just to help your knight get up to where it needs to be and get into combat or just take out its target as effectively as possible. The final thing to mention is that, like the Loyalists, the Chaos Knight box is confirmed to be being split into 2 versions. One box is getting you the Abominant alongside the Desecrator or the Rampager, whilst the other box will now get you the Desecrator, the Rampager, or this new Ruinator. So it's just a bit of a choice now to decide which box you want to get, like the Imperial version. Yes, it's a little bit clumsy and annoying, but I don't really think it's the end of the world, and I think that getting a new unit, even if it is just in the form of an upgrade sprue, is at least something cool for both knight armies to be getting. Yes, I wish they were getting more. I would love to see some kind of infantry support for the knight armies, or a wholly new knight variant and knight build completely, not just an upgrade sprue. But I do think I have to say this one does look kind of cool. I'm a bit worried personally that the Dark Flame Lance will be underwhelming, because typically flamer weapons can often be quite subpar because they have to balance out the fact that they auto hit. But on the flip side, I have got a lot of faith that the Felbor is just going to be amazing. And as I said, I do genuinely think it's going to be one of the most powerful anti-tank, anti-vehicle, anti-monster weapons in the entire game by the time this thing hits the tables. And that's going to be it for this video. I'd love to know, as always, what you make of this new Knight Ruinator, and also what sort of rules and abilities you think the Lance and the Felbor are going to end up having. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.